Magnus Carlsen is one of the best chess players of all time. He has proven this by regularly winning multiple tournaments, being the world champion for over 10 years while achieving a peak rating of 2882. Magnus has pretty much become the king of chess, but there was this one game that stood out from others, a game where he barely made it in time and had only 30 seconds to play against his opponent, grandmaster Vladislav Kovalev, an outstanding player with a rating of 2623 ELO. As Magnus arrived, he saw a pawn at e4. He immediately responded with pawn e6, and the game began. After a few moves, it was clear that he played a variation of the French defense. While Vladislav took his time with every move, Magnus made them as quickly as possible, fighting for every second. Kovalev played c4, which would lead to an isolated queen-pawn structure if Magnus decided to take it. After some time, Kovalev decided to bring his knight to c3. Carlsen ignored him and castled. Kovalev's time advantage had already shrunk to just under a minute, and it had only been a few moves so far. As Kovalev castled, Magnus responded with pawn on h6 to prevent the dark-squared bishop from reaching g5. Kovalev finally moved his bishop to f3 to scare away the black knight, but Magnus supported it with pawn c6. In response, Kovalev put pressure on the black knight and moved his queen to b3. At this point, Kovalev lost his time advantage, and it looked like Magnus was in a better position. White decided to exchange knights, following up with his bishop, which was taken by a black pawn, and the queens were exchanged. Roles changed, and with 3 seconds left, Kovalev brought out his dark-squared bishop. Carlsen pushed the white knight with his bishop to f6, which led to Kovalev having to back off to d4. This gave Magnus space to exchange rooks. He then wanted to get rid of white's pawn on d4 by moving his rook to a4, but Kovalev defended it with bishop c3. Magnus went on the offense and pressured Kovalev's pieces to back off. His pawn to b4 started an exchange of bishops. Kovalev tried to defend his pawns by moving his rook to d2, so Carlsen started pushing his pawns to pressure the white king. Vladislav gave resistance with g3, and Magnus took it. Kovalev improved the position of his knight to e3, which led the black bishop to move to a6. After a couple of moves, Carlsen decided to push his pawn to b4. In response, Kovalev moved his king to d3, which almost led to a checkmate by the black bishop. King to b1 made the black rook run to a8, then attacked the knight from e8. This led to Kovalev exchanging his knight for a bishop. The endgame didn't look good for Kovalev, as he lost a pawn on g4 but managed to pick up a pawn at b3. Magnus then pressured the white king to e1 with rook g2 and started his pawns forward. Kovalev's hopes were destroyed with the final move of rook b2, which didn't give Vladislav any other option than to resign. The players shook hands, and Magnus left this game victorious. Subscribe.